Gratitude is the attitude that elevates your latitude. Gratitude is the attitude that elevates your latitude. So a few years ago, I was doing some research for a speech, and I came across that quote from Dr. Robert Schuller. And tonight, I'd love to share with you how that quote changed my life. So I want to start by kind of breaking that quote down a little bit into the three main parts that resonate with me for this quote. So the first part is gratitude. So spend any time on Facebook, on Instagram, or your favorite yoga studio, and you'll be inundated with messages to show gratitude, to have gratitude in your heart, to choose something each day to be grateful for. Attitude. So each morning, I aspire to do a morning ritual. And that morning ritual has three parts. So first I meditate. Oh, I'm sorry. I have a big coffee. It is a morning ritual. So I have that big coffee, and then I meditate. And then I think of something that I'm grateful for. And for me, that process is picking something very specific and very meaningful to me. And then I think about my attitude. And I consciously decide what my attitude will be that day. So happy, mad, sad, glad. I choose how I'm going to show up in the world that day. And what I found is the more often I can do this morning ritual, the more often I can do it, I end up choosing to show up in the world with love and kindness. And so then we're on to that third word, latitude. And the review. So when I started to consider that word latitude, I first had found this meme on Facebook, and I'm sure lots of you have seen it. And for much of my life, I felt like this little circle, always looking in, always wanting to be included, never quite seeing the magic of the world. But if I was being really, really honest with you tonight, and I had a bigger piece of Bristol board, I would have drawn that circle probably over here somewhere. Right? The magic of the world and the positivity of the world seemed like it was on another planet, so far away I couldn't even see it or even believe that it existed. But funny thing about that word, latitude, because I started to think about, well, what does latitude mean? And for me at that moment, it meant looking up and spaciousness, right? Looking around. As an introvert, I spend a lot of my time looking down to protect myself from the busyness of the world and the noise of the world and trying to protect myself. But I realized when I thought about that word latitude, I needed to look up more. I needed to look up and really see the world and be present, because for so often I wasn't. And so I started practicing that. I started practicing being present in my life. And as I got a little more comfortable with that, being an introvert, that's a slow process, I thought about this. And I thought about the magic of the world, and I started to see it a little bit. And when I started to see it a little bit, I thought about the past. Well, where did maybe I perhaps missed some of the magic in my life in the past? And I thought of lots of different situations where I just missed it, but there were a couple that were really impactful to me that I wanted to share. So there was a Sunday afternoon, I'm at the cottage with my parents, and I'm packing up and getting ready to go. And my father is there, that emotionless man that I grew up with, the kind of man that wasn't huggy, wasn't touchy-feely, didn't say I love you much. But for some reason that day, he came up to me and held me in his arms and pulled me in real tight and said, I love you. And it was something I hadn't heard him say since I was 16. So in the moment, I was really grateful to hear that. And as I drove away, I remember shedding a tear or two. But when I look back on that moment, I missed it. I missed the magic of that moment because I was worried about the traffic I was going to hit on the 400. I was worried about what time I was going to get home. I was worried about, did I pack my toothbrush? What did I forget? I also missed how courageous it must have been for him to do that, right? To be that vulnerable with me. And I missed honoring that by being present for him. I also thought of a time my 17-year-old daughter came out of her bedroom and she was crying and there was big tears coming down her cheeks. And I looked at her and I knew something was really, really wrong because she didn't have her cell phone in her hand. But she sat down beside me and put her head on my shoulder and was crying. And as she could regain her breath and she could regain her voice, she told me that her boyfriend had just broken up with her over text message. And this was her first boyfriend and the first boy that she felt love with. So in that moment, I became the dad I thought I needed to be, right? I supported her. I shared stories with her. And we cried together a little bit, and we even laughed together a little bit. And I helped her through that moment. But when I thought about latitude, when I looked back in that situation, I realized in some ways I really missed it. I missed that moment because I was just trying to do what I needed to do to support her. But I also missed it because at that point in my life, I needed to hear that I was a good dad. And there it was, sitting right there beside me. For her to come out of her room, to be that courageous, to trust that I would support her, to just trust me, right? Must have meant that I was doing something right. So a couple of summers ago, after finding this quote, so it was 2017, and I was having lots of first dates. Not many second dates, and definitely not any third dates. But near the end of July, I was finally going to have another first date. And as I was getting ready, I felt a little nervous, felt little butterflies in my stomach. And I thought, well, Michael, you have this quote. Use your tools, right? And so gratitude. I felt grateful that I was going to meet somebody. We'd had some really lovely conversations online. Right? And I was really looking forward to meeting this person. And my attitude, I was so thankful to meet this person. And I was looking forward to it. And so I had this attitude of just being open and vulnerable and ready to meet her. And I checked in on my latitude, right? Was I looking up? Checked my body posture. Was I looking up? Was I going to be present for this person? And a little while later, she showed up at my door, this beautiful person, with a mason jar full of homemade kombucha. That's right, not chocolates, not a bottle of wine, a bottle of kombucha, homemade kombucha. And I knew then she was someone special, and, and we've had many, many dates since, even tonight. And so that quote really changed my life. It really made me present in my life. Really gave me a chance, the permission, I should say, gave me permission to really see my life and to see the magic of the world. And so I ask, where can you find the magic in your life?